President Trump's sweeping 10% tariff on goods from every country has come into force in the last hour. The fallout from the import taxes prompted sharp falls on stock markets around the world. US and UK markets suffered their worst week since Co. Well, the British Prime Minister Sigma is spending the weekend speaking to foreign leaders about how to avoid what Downing Street has called an all-out trade war. Our North American correspondent David Willis reports the closing bell bringing to an end a tumultuous week on Wall Street, one that has seen trillions of dollars wiped off share prices around the world. Victus grins from those on the trading floor, reading a market meltdown of the kind not seen since Co-China 67%. That's tariffs. It was retaliation from the country. At the top of Donald Trump's list, the one with whom the United States has the largest trade deficit that prompted this second day of sell-off as China hit back with 34% tariffs of its own. On his Truth Social platform, the president accused the Chinese of panicking. China played it wrong. He wrote earlier, doubling down on his controversial trade policy with an all-caps message that read, "To the many investors coming into the United States and investing massive amounts of money, my policies will never change. This is a great time to get rich, richer than ever before," not a sentiment shared by the chairman of America's central bank, the Federal Reserve, who delivered a softly spoken warning of inflation rather than prosperity. While uncertainty remains elevated, it is now becoming clear that tariff increases will be significantly larger than expected. And the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth. The size and duration of these effects remains uncertain. 10% tariffs on all imports into the US came into effect overnight, with higher so-called reciprocal levies on goods from certain nations set to follow. Next week, analysts warn the measures could slow economic growth and lead to a global recession. If that or the stock market turmoil is worrying. President Trump, he isn't letting it show. He spent the day at his Florida golf course, defiant in the belief that his Liberation Day announcement will indeed make America wealthy again. David Willis, BBC News, Los Angeles. And a little earlier, I spoke to David, and he's been telling me what the mood was like in Washington. Very staunchly positive. And on the golf course today, in fact, Frankie, out of view from the public, but sending off missives on his Truth social media account, basically saying that he has no intention whatsoever of changing course and criticizing China's decision to impose those 34% tariffs on imports into the country, basically saying that the Chinese, in his words, panicked in doing so. I think the big thing now is what will follow this. As far as other nations are concerned, the EU and Canada are said to be considering their options. Other nations, the UK and several others around the world, are tending to favour the prospect of negotiation in the hope of getting a long-term trade deal out of this with the United States and, of course, a lifting of those punitive trade tariffs. But as you said, President Trump on the golf course today, basically maintaining that nothing here to see, nothing to worry about. These are just teething problems, as he put it. So far, it is interesting to hear. But, of course, businesses will be reacting in the US. Are we hearing from many of them at the moment? Are there any for these tariffs, against these tariffs? You know, there's a lot of concern that there are certain sectors, the agriculture sector in particular, that could be very harmed by these tariffs that have been imposed by China. There are a lot of people, of course, as well, who have their livelihoods tied up in that sector, and we're seeing some disque on the part of Republican lawmakers, not publicly. Nobody's broken ranks yet to criticize Donald Trump over these measures, but disque is being expressed that this could, of course, have an impact on certain Republican constituencies where the impact, frankly, could be devastating. So I think there's a lot of hope amongst Republicans that these are not measures that will remain in place indefinitely, rather that they will act as a sort of cudgel, as a lure, if you like, to get foreign governments, America's trading partners, back to the negotiating table and back to hammering out new trade deals. Frankie and David, just really quickly, tariffs, of course, mean tax, so obviously concerns prices will start rising. Where you are, how are people feeling? General consumers feeling? Maybe it is too early to tell at the moment. I think there is a lot of concern. And analysts here are saying that prices will rise and that they will rise pretty quickly, probably in the next few days or so, certainly over the next few weeks, and that